And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to World Talks here on TVP World, where every word matters. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guest on this exclusive interview. Now, in a recent interview, Vytautas Landsbergis, a key figure in Lithuania's struggle for independence from the Soviet Union, expressed grave concerns about the West's response to Russia's aggression in Ukraine. Landsbergis, now 91, criticized what he sees as a lack of resolve, particularly from Germany, in confronting Vladimir Putin's ambition. He argues that Chancellor Scholz's caution is dangerously naive. Joining us today on TVP World to discuss how these sentiments resonate across the Baltic region and what they mean for the ongoing conflict in Ukraine is Wierenga from the International Relations Institute at the Baltic Defence College. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World. So can you tell us how significant is Landsbergis' criticism of the West, particularly Germany, in the context of this Baltic region's history with Russia?
Of course, August 23rd was a really important day, marking, as you discussed in the earlier segments, the Baltic Way and independence and re-independence, and the fragility of peace and stability in the region is of crucial importance to everybody in all three of the Baltic countries. So when it came at a time like this, I think that there's a lot of, say, push to get as much support for Ukraine and as continued as a way so that they can come to an end of this conflict and war of aggression. And I think that if a figure like Vytautas Landsbergis has come out and said this, then that is quite significant.
And do you believe the Baltic nation as a whole shares his concern about the West's approach for Ukraine, or do you think he just have a kind of stronger view when it comes to this particular issue?
A strong view, but I do think that there is a sentiment of shared understanding about that. And with everything that comes into foreign aid packages and military deployments, I mean, Germany is looking to move about 5,000 troops to Lithuania by 2027, and that'll be the first time that there's been a foreign troop deployment since the Second World War. So I think that a lot of people do realize that things, as they always are, politically sensitive, but I think that the vast majority of people, if I had to guess, would agree with Vytautas Landsbergis because they want to see more security in the region, and they know that if Russia's not in Ukraine, what's going to stop them from eventually encroaching on EU and NATO borders? And it's not so much a question of it's definitely going to happen. The likelihood of that, I think, or the potential has increased in people's minds since February of 2022. So support for Ukraine is steadfast and very, very solemn in all three of the Baltic countries.
Right. So, like you mentioned, Germany has stationed over 5,000 troops, or around 5,000 troops to Lithuania. But at the same time, we also saw that in next year's budget, there's going to be a little bit of cut when it comes to spending in support of Ukraine. So, where do you see Germany going in this? What direction do you see Germany going? Is it an increased security support for this region, or is it a decrease? All right, I apologize for that, ladies and gentlemen. We seem to have a little bit of connection issues. We're going to go into a very short break while we fix the technical stuff, but please stay tuned. We'll be right back. And ladies and gentlemen, we're back here on World Talks on TVP World. Now, just a little bit of update and reminder, we've been discussing the military support of Germany to Ukraine, which some has criticized as lacking. However, we do see, like our guest Louis just mentioned right there, a 5,000 troop being stationed in Lithuania. While on the other hand, we do also see that Germany has been cutting the budget spending when it comes to support for Ukraine. Louis, can you tell us what's the direction that Germany is going right now? Are we seeing an increase or decrease in military support in this region as a whole?
Well, I would say that, yeah, Germany has slashed some funding in a push for savings domestically, but I think that the German commitment to Lithuania in terms of being the framework nation for the enhanced forward presence signals an increase in support. And I think that the large criticism that's kind of rounded when it comes to the German government currently is the consistency in support. So in allowing Ukraine to not just defend but attack, for example, and giving consistent support. But Germany has been doing more than any other European country to provide military aid to Ukraine. Only the United States has done more. So I think that that's a very commendable action on the part of the German government.
Right, and you mentioned consistency and the use of long-range weapons. We do know that the Western nations have been very reluctant for Ukraine to use these weapons to strike inside of Russia for fear of crossing some red line or escalation. But then we saw the cursed incursion happen where the Ukrainians did go into Russian territory and the so-called escalation did not happen. Do you think that might change the minds of some of these Western leaders and finally let them, unshackle Ukraine when it comes to what weapon they can use?
Yes, I think that was likely what's going to happen. I don't think that it'll ever be a unanimous front to allow this to continue. But so far, at least as far as wars go, this has been not as politically or as kinetically dangerous as some may have thought. So this is a political win for Ukraine and a political loss for Mr. Putin and for Russia. So I think that this will be allowed to continue, and the Ukrainians are going to be allowed to defend their territory by doing as they see fit, which is attacking inside of Russia. And I think that for NATO's eastern flank, that gives the benefit of having less Russian troops able to do anything around their borders.
So what would Landsbergis and others like him see as an ideal response from Germany and the West to Russia's action if he thinks that the current support is not enough or not consistent enough?
Well, of course, that's tricky to try and get into the mind of somebody who I don't know personally. But my read on this is that a lot of people like him who were around and instrumental during the collapse of the Soviet Union always had an understanding of Russia, whether it be the Russian Federation as it is now or the Soviet Union as something that is an existential challenge and an existential threat to the security of the Baltic countries. So in that sense, I would think that the answer would be allow them to hit Russia as deep inside as they want and as kinetically hard and ferocious as they see fit to try and get as much leverage for what might be an inevitable peace talk, which that's a whole nother issue because that's simply politically very complicated. But at least Ukraine will have the bargaining chips that they see fit if they can actually say that they've gone inside of the Russian Federation, which they've done, and that they have beaten them on their own soil, which they're doing, and that morally they do not want to claim any of that territory. This is just seen as defending themselves through an offensive attack.
Right. And staying on the topic of Baltic states, ever since the war, there's this phenomenon where the proximity to Russia is almost directly proportional to how much military spending is being used in the country. Do you think that is still the case when it comes to the support of Ukraine in its fight against Russia, or are you seeing it more homogenized now across the West?
I think we're seeing it slightly more homogenized across the West. If you look at the NATO summit communique that was released last month after the Washington summit, the language on Ukraine was particularly strong. And of course, that's 32 allies that
have to come together and reach consensus. And I think that allies further west in Europe are understanding that just because they are further removed from the potential theater doesn't mean that they're removed at all because of the nature of the alliance. And I think that after Russia began the second phase of their brutal and unjust war of conquest against Ukraine, this kind of thinking crystallized. At first, it was like, yes, European soil is under attack, but it's not NATO soil. And of course, we think what could be next. But then that was coupled with the whole world seeing the failure of the Russian military and that it was not what we thought that it was. Now, going forward, after 3 summits since the second phase of Russia's war of conquest, I think that this is sort of crystallizing, and I wouldn't necessarily say homogenizing, but I think we're getting there a bit quicker than might be expected, so that there's all-around support and an understanding that it's not just Russia, that there are other countries that are enabling Russia's war of conquest in Ukraine, and that this is going to be a persistent problem.
All right, and back to Mr. Landsbergis' criticism towards the West, especially Germany. He also pointed out called out German Chancellor Olaf Scholz for his cautious approach when it comes to the security of the Baltic states. Is there anything in particular that kind of made him make that statement, that the German Chancellor has any step that he has taken?
I don't know if it was because of the recent decision to slash funds. I mean, Olaf Scholz was in Moldova very recently, and he stated that Germany will not, cease its support for Ukraine. I think that maybe, like, my read on this largely is that it was the anniversary of the Baltic Way, and that's a very important step in the countries of the Baltic states regaining their independence. And as I mentioned in the beginning of this interview, I mean, the idea of independence and the idea of being secure and stable when it comes especially to Russia is something that is sacred, and it's not taken for granted. So I think that this is just one step in an overall series of frustrations about the German government acting in a way that is swift and decisive.
Right, frustration, I think, is the key word here, seeing that the war in Ukraine is dragging on into its 3rd year, and we still are not seeing any end in sight. Thank you so much for your input and insight and helping us dissect this situation.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being with us on TVP World. Really appreciate it.
Always.
And thank you for watching. Meanwhile, this has been World Talks, but for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.